that all nations, including the United States, carry out this transfer to a point where no state would have the military power to challenge the progressively strengthened United Nations Peace Force. This is merely part of the overall plan to resolve our conflict with communism, not by victory over it, but by merging with it into a world body, since it will have superior military force at its disposal. It will become, by definition, a one-world government.
We have a real chance at this new world order, an order in which a credible United Nations can use its peacekeeping role to fulfill the promise and vision of the UN's founders. And that world order is only going to be enhanced if this newly activated peacekeeping function of the United Nations proves to be effective. That is the only way the new world order will be enhanced.
As I call him, reiterated the call for the creation of this Fourth Reich of the Rich, this Hitlerian superstate.
Осветить и понять корни того, что мир развернулся в своем движении в другом направлении, к новому мировому порядку, новой цивилизации.
Even that does not describe why the world has changed so much and why the world has turned so much toward a new world order and a new kind of civilization.
Hubbard is one of the New Age leaders, and you'll find her mentioned too in this book, The Unicorn Secret, Murder in the Age of Aquarius. She was a close friend of Ira Einhorn. And she wrote, she's headed some major New Age efforts, the World Incident Cooperation. She was a prominent figure in the Harmonic Convergence, August 16th and 17th, which the New Agers said was to launch the start of a 5-year cleansing cycle, and that would culminate in certain actions in 1992. Now, Barbara Marx Hubbard's book, which was used widely for those events, was called The Book of Revelation, the Book of Co-Creation. And in there, she said that 1/4 to 1/2 of the world's population was going to have to die to usher in this new age. And she quoted these voices that were speaking through her saying, "We come to bring death. We do this for the sake of the planet." She also is heading some other efforts. There's a dialogue effort with various Protestant fundamentalists. They had a conference at Gold Lake, Boulder, Colorado, and she's also been the key figure in the Soviet-American dialogue process. And she said that the New Agers had made a very significant end run. Now, I knew she'd been over to Russia for a number of meetings with the top Soviet leadership, and I had a videotape of her at the Soviet embassy in Washington, D.C., where the Soviet government was throwing a party for her New Age group. But anyway, she said on this tape that they had made an end run, that they had the entire Soviet leadership with them, that from the top to the bottom, the Soviet leadership had made the quantum leap, and that they now were in a position where the Soviet government would help them usher in this new age. So I had friends run me over to the Soviet-American Dialogue Office, the citizen diplomacy teams in Bellevue, Washington. Their offices for this are being held. And when I got over there, it was kind of an interesting scenario. You had your old socialist ladies, and they were almost treated as serfs. The prominent New Agers were the executives. And the New Agers were telling the old socialist ladies that the reason why the peace process had never worked in the past was that this resonating core dialogue process had never been used. They had to somehow develop some type of a group mind, and they had to go through these meditational practices to do it. And the book that Barbara Marx Hubbard swore up and down to me she had pulled out of circulation was being used, I found, to train the entire Soviet-American dialogue team. Now, the Gorbachev speech sounded like it came right out of that material. Unity and diversity. It's we need a new world order. And I've got the videotapes. They're working together quite openly. When I was in that office, they were scheduling trips to Moscow, trips to Leningrad. The interaction was fantastic. And what they had done was harness the old socialist networks in the United States, too. But it was the New Agers, clearly, who were in the driver's seat. It was an alliance, and I came out of there shaking. I said, well, this is just fantastic. What a marriage, the KGB and the New Age movement.
Well, now, what do they talk about as this day of cleansing? Are they talking about it?
Hubbard expresses it as a planetary Pentecost. John Randolph Price, another New Age leader, a planetary Pentecost. Benjamin Krem talks about it as a planetary Pentecost. They believe this is going to be a day where they're all going to be overtaken by these spirits that they're courting and plugging into, and that they will be used as God's instruments. Now, I've had Life Springs people tell me they were taught this in the classes too. They said that these things would come to pass. They even believed they were Christians, but that they would be God's instruments to purge the evil of the world of evil. And and on that day, I think what's going to happen to these people could literally, whether they're really hearing voices or whether they think they're hearing voices, they could be turned into monsters like Ira Einhorn said, psychopaths like myself emerge when it's time for societies to change. And this is the expectation that they will be controlled by these spirits, and that it's really the spirits making the selection, and that 1/4 to 1/2 of the world will have to die, that the world will have to be purged of negative elements to usher in the New Age.
Any feeling for how that will occur? Are we talking about a...
I think we're going to look at normally nice people who are turned into monsters as a result of this process.
So we're going to have a number of psychotics running around killing their neighbors.
I think so. There was a Russian Orthodox priest who quite obviously was trying to sound some of the same warnings that I was. He wrote a book I can commend. It's called Orthodoxy and the Religion of the Future by Father Seraphim Rose. He's dead now, but his book is available from the St. Herman of Alaska Monastery Press in Platina, California. And he said it is all too likely. He wrote this in 75 that Jonestown, or 70, and he wrote it first in 75 and then revised it after Jonestown. He said it is all too likely that Jonestown is but the beginning of far worse things to come in the 1980s. And then drew the distinction. He said that Jonestown had gone beyond mass murder to mass suicide. One really interesting statement in Running God's Plan by Foster Bailey, and this is Lucis Trust, and these books are, again, they're standard fare and widely subscribed to by New Agers. But he, on page 15, he said, 14 and 15, he said one of the goals of their hierarchy was to have a unified Europe. He said, now, we tried this before. Working through a disciple, using the Rhine River Valley as a binding factor, he said that attempt was unsuccessful. But now another attempt is in full swing, the 6-nation European Common Market, which now, of course, has become the 12-nation European Common Market, and Europe is due to unify in 1992. And the New Agers, in fact, many have told me personally, people such as Marilyn Ferguson, that they make many trips and speak frequently to the European Parliament. So the New Agers are looking at this as one of the pillars of the New Age.
And, of course, there are a number of people who have used that as a fulfillment of biblical prophecy, indicating that the Antichrist was to arise out of that whole thing.
It's possible, although I think a more likely interpretation could be the New World Order that the New Agers have in mind as a 10 bioregion federation.
Mm-hmm.
And that could, of which Europe would be one of the 10 bioregions. I noticed the United States and Canada are entering into a free trade agreement too, which I have mixed feelings about up here in the Detroit area, of course. Alice Bailey spells out specifically in her book, The Raisin Initiations, that this refers to 3 dead and gone religions, Christianity, Judaism, and the Muslims. Now, there's a set of stanzas that is distributed also in New Age meetings. It's not seen quite as commonly as the last set. It's also part of the Great Invocation. I'm seeing it now more commonly distributed in New Age books. And that set of stanzas reads, let light and love and power and death fulfill the purpose of the coming one.
When you say network, what are you referring to?
Working together to achieve certain ends, that they will work together with one person on one project and another person on another project, and the shortcut rather than working through an organization, one organization, doing things as an organization. They will form links and coalitions and crosshatch